All right. So today's general meeting will be me doing a internal training on the topic of online interview. So as we know that our life has been changed with the COVID situation, since so does how we work and how we communicate with each other, both socially and professionally. Just like parceling your teeth, or maybe you have a hole in your pants, that kind of embarrassing stuff. The people on the other side of the interview or the meeting are not usually your best friend, so they won't really call you out for the stuff that you're doing wrong. So even if you have the best, say, webcam, there's still a good chance that your lighting, your background, or your internet connection, or maybe some your unconscious habits that you're making is still making your meetings less polished than they could be. So this meeting, I'll be going over some of the tips, setups, and things to look out for this type of interview, and hopefully you can learn more from the session and use it as a checklist or a guide when you have this scenario coming up in the upcoming. So, like I said, the interview may be virtual, but the preparation is real. So we need to start from the preparation before the actual video call, just like how you would prepare yourself for an in-person interview. So use what's coming as a checklist as you go through your preparation. So practice always makes it perfect. So you want to start as usual, prepare your elevator pitch. So this could be a conversation starter. It will be a good jumping point to display who you are and what you do. So you want to, as usual, be natural, maintain eye contact, and start off strong with a good impression for the interviewer to see. So since we're moving all the interviews virtual, you want to use your screen state to the best you can. So use your resume as a guide as on the side. Maybe split your screen, or maybe have a print ready off the camera when you're speaking about your accomplishments and stats. So take advantage of that, and maybe also have a pen or paper ready to write down some notes, talking points that you prepare, stuff like that. As always, you want to keep it professional, so dress up, put in a clean look before the camera. Also, you want to alert your roommates, your family members in your home, your apartment, that you will having an interview. So leave yourself to cannot be disturbed and in the session. And then also you want to test your internet speed. Make sure you have a strong internet connection when you make the video call. So here I have a link to this website called speed test. So it's really simple. Just click go, and then you will see your internet connection immediately. Um, so we won't be doing that. I'll be sending this link in the chat. Here we go. So make sure you have a strong internet connection, because Zoom usually use up to or about 1.2 megabytes per second of the bandwidth of your internet, both upload and download. And that kind of depends on how many people you're in the call with, whether it's two or three, that could be changed going up and down. And then if you're on a platform like Skype or Google Hangout, that could be a little bit more depending on the group size as well. So if you don't have a really stable connection, maybe get closer to the router in your house. Maybe try a different room to see if there's any interference for the Wi-Fi, or maybe among other devices. If your router have two frequencies, so 2.4 gigahertz is the usual frequency, and also some router supports 5 gigahertz, you want to try to switch with the 5 gigahertz so that you get the best bandwidth you can from the internet speed that you have, or the internet plan that you have. So the 5 gigahertz usually require you to move closer to the router than the 2.4 gigahertz, as it covers less space, and transmissions will be weaker the further you get. And if all of those kind of tips fails, try to get an Ethernet cable, those dongles from Ethernet to USB, so that you can use the most of the bandwidth and close to the router as possible. So how to set up your virtual interview meeting. So this could be some time that you take to change up some of the habits that you have, or maybe your desk space, and we'll talk about that. So first, you want to have your face face the door in the room, and have the camera face the wall that is neutral and free of clutter. This has something to do with the background setup, which I'll talk about later. But just the general rules of thumb is that you want to keep a simple background so that it doesn't draw the interviewer's attention away from you to what's behind you, what's going on behind you. So we'll have a dedicated slide on the background setup later. And then you want to clear your desk space, clear them up. So only leave the required documents, notes, pencil, or maybe a copy of resume that you have. So this is kind of like a psychology fact that the more organized the space in front of you, the more organized is your mind. So when you're speaking, when you're talking, it'll be more natural, and then you are free of those thoughts that are distracting you in front of you. And then next, you want to keep a comfortable but formal posture, right? So now this is to leave kind of a good impression of you when you're speaking. And there's tons of research suggesting that the content that you speak about does not matter as much as the first impression that you leave. So how you speak, how you present yourself when you first meet the person that you're interviewing with. So you really want to leave that good impression. Start off strong with some energy, and then make room to display your body language during the meeting. So make sure your hands are not stuck. They're not object on the desk that is going to fall off and then create noise. And you also want to center yourself in the frame, in the camera. So check that before you open up your camera. And then I'll show you how to do that. I guess most of you know, but we'll go through that as well. And then lastly, I guess depends on everyone. Keep it hydrated. So I always keep a glass of water on my desk at all time, or drink or whatever, so that I'm hydrated, and it's a good chance to take some natural pauses to drink some water, so that you could change topic or maybe relax your facial muscle so that you don't stiffen up when you're talking too much. So we talk about some kind of general settings behind you on your desk, things that you do maybe on a usual basis. Now we'll move on to some more technical. So we're switching gears to the gears that what makes a great interview. And I divided this section into 4 aspects. And then the first aspect would be lighting. So lighting is really important because it's kind of the trickiest part of setting up a home office, and also as well as for photography, for video recording. Without a good lighting, the object of you're showing, your face, will not be showing properly, so it will leave a bad impression. And that the light source is, as we talk about, is a really important aspect. So here are some easy ways that you can organize your lighting, set up your lighting properly before the interview. So as I said, we want to watch out for the light source, right? So we want to have, so the best would be a warm, indirect, natural sunlight that is facing you, so shining on you at an angle from your window, or maybe if you have the option, you can purchase those well-lit LED ring lights. So those are just LEDs stacked on a ring. Maybe you can see here from my reflection of my glasses, I have a small one up top. This will lit up your face more evenly. But you need to couple that with appropriate background, which we'll talk about later. And then maybe if you don't have that option, or maybe your interview is during the nighttime, like we're on the West Coast right now, you can use some artificial light, like lamps, or household light sources in the background, or maybe in front of you. Maybe in the daytime, you can also try a curtain behind you, or use the trick of curtain to diffuse the light a little bit, so that light source is not that strong shining on your face. This is really important because a good lighting really elevates a viewer's mood. So with a clear view of your face and body in front of the camera, usually hides kind of the tiredness on your face as well, so which creates a good impression. So some of the red flags that you want to avoid: during the daytime, you don't want to have a window behind you in the background. We'll go through some examples later. You'll see the effect it does. It basically messes up the exposure of the camera. The camera, maybe you have the webcams have really small sensors, so it's really sensitive to the light source, like big bright light sources in the background. Um, or you don't want to have sunlight, direct sunlight on you, so those sunlight in the afternoon or the daytime, during the morning, those direct strips of light on your face also messed up how you look, and your face, how it's evenly lit up. During the nighttime, you want to watch out for insufficient lighting after sunset. So if I turn off this light, you'll see that my face is pretty much just white in the because the screen is pretty bright. And then if I have this, it's more like warmth and more even with the white spots and even lit up on my face. You don't want to have a desk lamp that is really close to the camera. So I have here a desk lamp. If I move it really close to the light, you can see kind of the layer of like the white layer that is cast onto the camera, and you want to avoid that. To have the light source directly into the camera as well. If you want to go to the next level, like I said, purchase a simple LED ring light or maybe some LED light array in the background for you. So that helps to give more control of your light source to improve the video quality. The second aspect I want to talk about is clean background. So how do you set up your background? So background can further elevate those professionalism that you have. Whether it's messy, simple background, as we know from those funny videos of Zoom fails on the internet, and also increase the overall video quality, and it draws more attention to your body language as you speak. So as a general rule of thumb, we want to keep it simple, tidy, and not too personal. So hide those flags or maybe bags, kitchenware, whatever in the background, or maybe move to a different room to keep the background simple. And always test that before you open up the camera. You want to have a background that has good contrast with your clothing, the color of your clothing. So this is a virtual background, MC here, but you can see that if I have a black background in my back, your attention is basically just on me, on my clothes, and on my face. If I have a really messy background, have stuff with yellow color, bright orange, your attention will be automatically drawn to those objects in the background. So we want to avoid that as well. You want to pick places with low noise and less moving object, so that doesn't draw attention as well. So natural background is more preferred than a virtual background. If you want to show things, I will talk about later. If you show things, you'll be kind of, the camera wouldn't really pick up if you use a virtual background. But with exceptions, of course, you can use a virtual background to elevate your personality, maybe to add some. I'll show you later examples to how to edit using OBS to edit some advertisement for you, your content information in the background. Or use it as a PPT slide so you can present stuff as well. So that's an exception. Talking about virtual background, it has imperfection and creates more maybe a spacious feeling if you use the correct background, maybe some office background that is clean, maybe have a fake depth of field, so you can pretend that you have really open space background in the back. So it can be inconvenient, like I said, when you need to show things on the camera. And also you can have the choice to design your own, maybe add your contact information. The red flags to avoid. So you, like I said, from the light source, from the previous slide, you want to avoid the windows, sunlight that coming from the background. Also mirrors, moving object, and really bright light sources behind you. That also messed up the contrast, the exposure from the camera, as we'll see in some examples very soon. Moving on to the next level. So you want to maybe invest in a green screen. I don't have that. Some professors do because they do those meetings all day and every day. Maybe as simple as a curtain will work, just slide in the back so it hides everything behind you, and it will work better than a messy background. So, and also don't hesitate, whatever you do, don't hesitate to change up, move around your temporary setup, your desk, so that you get the clean background that you need to do the interview. So don't hesitate to do that. So now we'll move on to, I guess, two examples that I found online that shows how lighting and background really works and doesn't work at sometimes. So we can see here our friend that doesn't have a name. This is the same guy from the left picture here and the right picture. And then in the left, we see that he's using, he's having the camera facing the window. So this is during the daytime. The background is really bright. So we can see his face is underexposed so that we can't really distinguish any facial feature that he have. And this tripod is here. It's kind of messy. We don't know what's going on. And on the right, he basically turned around 360 degrees. He's using the natural sunlight and shut off the curtains on the side. And here I'll move the printer. Shut off the curtain on the side, and also turned off the light in the background. So we really want to avoid this overexposed area, so that causes the blackface or issue that you'll see really commonly when you're doing video calls. And next up, we have this really strange blue color cast on his face. This is because he's using both the indoor light, so the artificial light in the background here, and also the natural light that's facing from the window. So this is because the indoor light is usually an orange or warm color, and then the natural light is more bright, more bluish, more color. So they will create this really strange blue or orange color cast on your face, and you really want to avoid this. This just looks really weird. And the example on the right is nowhere near like a perfect setup because the background is really dark. We can't really tell what's going on. There's a screen. It's kind of messy. So we still have room to improve that. Then moving on to this setup here. This is from the last slide. The same guy. He basically turned around 45 degrees so that the natural light is first he shut off the curtain. This is a good job. And then he basically turned 45 degrees so that the light is shining at an angle on his face. This creates this kind of cast shadow on his right half of the face. This creates more of a natural look and uses this soft shadow kind of also creates a cinematic look as well. So we want to kind of achieve this look with a proper background that is dark or maybe that is clean. You can achieve that. So this could be I would say like a 95, 90 or A minus grade. And then the third aspect, moving on, we have camera. So some computers do have decent built-in cameras like those PC laptops, but most of them are mediocre, right? And the angle from the laptop to your face also produce and sometimes unattractive and off-putting a picture, and you can't really adjust that. And also, if you use the monitor on your desk, and you have your laptop to the side, so you will be kind of looking at this direction or this direction. Maybe I do this. This looks kind of weird. So this result could be even worse. So maybe you want to invest in a webcam, as I'll talk about, and maybe have something that would lift up your laptop to make that good position. So first we'll talk about the laptop webcam. So usually the webcam that you have built into your laptop are fixed aperture, which means the sensor have a fixed opening to the light. It doesn't adjust like a proper lens on the camera does. And it also have really small sensor size for the light source. Therefore, it's very sensitive, as I mentioned, to the light condition of the background of your choice. The mediocre quality is because most of them are 720p, and then 4K, that's better. But some of them are 1080p, which is usually the highest standard that can be transmitted through web conferencing softwares like Zoom, Slack, and Google Hangout. And so you want to test the lighting in the background prior to the interviews so that you can get the most out of your camera that you have. And sometimes the insufficient lighting source of your choice would also crank up the ISO. So that's how sensor react to the lights to the light. So that a high ISO will produce a really grainy picture. So it kind of tries to bring up the light that is in the picture, but there's not enough light, so the picture will look really potatoish, really bad. And the algorithm is kind of like having your camera in the auto mode so that it will adjust the setting. That is kind of why you also have those exposure messed up in the examples that I showed before. Um, so as I talk about, the position of the camera also really matters. So here I have my webcam set up in a way so that is slightly above my eye level, so I can get those natural eye contact, looking into the screen, looking into the frame that I'm creating here. You wanna avoid those nose cams that you have on those Lenovo or XPS laptops. You want to elevate up your laptop so that you're seeing not your nose, not looking down. You're not looking down into the camera, but the camera is kind of looking slightly down on you, to create a more natural feel. Also, you want to center frame of your body. Of course, that's always the practice that you want to follow. If you have frequent virtual meetings, probably everyone, and that, or maybe those meetings do require you to turn on your camera, you might want to kind of consider investing a 1080p 60 frame per second webcam. So the more frame you have, the more smooth the picture that you will get. It's kind of limited by the software of your choice. So the better the software, you can achieve those 50 frame per second quality, as opposed to limited by software. So it does make a lot of difference. Here I'm using a 1080 cam. It looked significantly different than the one that I have on my Mac. So I always use that, and then it's easy to move around without moving my desktop, my monitor as well. So next level. So if you have maybe a DSLR hanging around your house that you don't use, that have a lens with larger aperture, then you want to set up for that so you can create a depth of field kind of feel. I'll demonstrate that in a sec. Also, if you have your cell phone or GoPro, you can also set up that as a webcam. You want to compare the quality, of course, to your built-in webcam that you have on your laptop. So there's a trade-off as you set up. It might take some extra turns, but sometimes you do get better quality out of those cameras as well. So here we'll do a really short demo as a kind of intermediate session. So here I'm using the 1080p webcam with kind of a virtual background. And as you'll see here, I turned on, just a second, let me turn off my virtual background so you can see the difference. So off. Yeah. So now you see this. I'm setting up this camera, my DSLR camera on the side with a LED light. So you can see this kind of difference. This background area is kind of shallow. I turned off the light in my room so you can see the kind of dark background. I have it off the angle, so it's not really a good setup, but you can see the difference. It focuses on your hand better. It creates this depth of field as opposed to this camera right here, the webcam, which have kind of a mediocre, but it's still pretty good quality, but it does not focus as it doesn't have a really large aperture. So the larger the aperture, it gets more lights in, so create that kind of depth of field that you'll see kind of in this area here. And I'll also demonstrate the kind of the light. How does that do to your video quality? So I have here completely off the light source, just the light from my monitor. So you can see this kind of blue cast on my face, right? And we want to avoid that. This is really weird. So here I turn on my lamp, which is facing the wall. This is usually a good practice because you don't want to have direct light on your face like this. This is really bright, really uncomfortable to look at all day. The light that's bouncing off of the wall kind of create a softer look. So you want to borrow those soft light from the light source so that it's not really sharp, really bright, evenly lit, but it lit up your face and the clothes that you're wearing. And also it does not really affect the background. If I do this, you might see the background gets lit up as well, unevenly. So we want to avoid that. So now I'll switch back to my main webcam and then and virtual background so you don't see my messy background. do not return to the next aspect, which is sound. Sound is really important. It's just as important as being seen as being heard, right? So in our meetings, we want to fix those audio problems. Hold on. Fix those audio problems. That is kind of much bigger obstacle sometimes to do the communication than video issues. So maybe in my experience or yours as well, professors sometimes mixed up the audio. We can't really hear what he's talking about. Maybe someone doesn't mute during the interview, and we see like weird noises coming off. Really funny. So we want to hit that goal to have perfect setup for the sound, and to goal is to kind of imitate how you speak to each other in a private room or a quiet room in main stack or in a library, that kind of thing. So interviewers usually are prepared to receive the sound that you produce, your voice, your music. So they have the setup correctly. So it's really up to you on your end to create those feelings, create a really good sound to project you out there during the meeting. So how we achieve that? So first, it depends on the microphone that you use, right? So if condition allows, make sure you use the external speaker or a built-in laptop speaker in combination with a Bluetooth headphone or Bluetooth mic. So the reason why is that it kind of produces a more natural, like I'm setting up here right now. So it's kind of natural. You don't have stuff dangling around on your face, on your side of your face, or maybe those headsets. You want to really want to avoid that because it limits how you move your head, how you show your face. Completely creates kind of that barrier that usually don't cross over the screen. If the condition doesn't allow, just do your best. It's okay. Headphones usually produce a better quality of sound than built-in microphone on your laptop. Like I put it here, so directional microphone are those shotgun microphone, podcast microphone, the big giant thing that you see the streamers use. Those are really good, so right, but that's kind of like really high level thing. I'm just putting out there for the ranking here. So on our side, it's usually up to those headphones and headset mic that we use. Maybe like the Apple ones or maybe some dedicated headphones have the microphone built in. Those are generally better than the laptop microphone, but also depends on how expensive our laptops are. The positioning, and you want to watch out for the positioning of the microphone. You want to keep them stationary as possible, about 5 to 6 inches away from your mouth. This is kind of how the microphone is tuned so that it pick up the best of the sound coming out from your mouth. If you play too close, it might get blown up, or too far, it's too quiet. But you can always set that up and test it. I'll show you later. And then the next part, adjust the volume, input volume, correct settings. I'll show you later. If you have an older laptop and you don't have a Bluetooth headset or a microphone, try to plug your microphone into your laptop and then have the microphones this part underneath your clothes, somewhere here, maybe a little bit further, or have something set up on your desk so that it's pointing to you. This avoids kind of using the, if you have older laptop, the older built-in microphone, and also keep it stationary so that you don't pick up the clothes noise moving around as you speak. Most importantly, you want to test them. So whatever you have, test them 3 times. So test them whatever times you can before the meeting. Maybe you can open up your own Zoom session and then try to speak to yourself. Maybe record a clip for playback to test the quality. If it's acceptable to you, it's usually acceptable to the other person on the other side. And if you are doing a one-on-one interview, the echo problem is usually not an issue. It happens when you have a separate microphone turned on, so a separate device, maybe your phone turned on in the same meeting, where your laptop is on speaker. So the microphone on your phone picks up the noise from a laptop speaker and then put it in the loop, echoing back. So that's usually not a problem if you're just using one laptop plugged in with one microphone. And then the last aspect would be the software. So we'll discuss more on the software. So Zoom is kind of the example that we use, right? There's others, Google Hangout, Skype, it's usually the same. You want to keep your laptop sufficiently charged or plugged in and also have a stable internet connection before you launch the meeting. You want to close up some non-essential RAM and CPU consuming software like Chrome tabs, videos that you play halfway, because the the Zoom kind of compresses your camera and the screen that you're sharing, maybe or just your camera, into the code algorithm that transmit over the internet. The streaming usually is streaming at about 30 or under frames per second. So basically, your camera is taking that many pictures per second, and it utilize the CPU resources heavily as well. You can monitor the use of your monitor the use of your software by going to the monitor software as well. On the Mac, I think it was in the utility folder activity monitor it's called, and then on Windows, I think you do Control Shift and then press uh, ESC, and then that goes to the control panel to see what's consuming the hardware that your laptop had before the interview. If you are preparing to share any screen content, you want to organize your desktop so that the screen share is as clean as possible. You don't have random files popping up, random windows popping up before you do the sharing. That can be awkward. So you want to eliminate those possibilities before you start the sharing, before you take the time to fix those awkward mistakes. And then moving on to the software, so we want to keep them up to date, right? And then utilize the built-in feature of the software to test the speaker and microphone, as I repeat several times. If you're in a noisier conversation or in a situation where there's people walking by in the background that you can't really avoid, make sure you mute yourself and apologize to the interviewer in advance so it doesn't become too awkward. And if the interview is web-based, like a website like Handshake, virtual background is usually unavailable. So you want to watch out for the background that you have. Don't assume that always the virtual background will always work. In situations that you have unstable internet or messy situation, you want to leave your contact information up front or leave your phone number so that you can pick up your session as quickly as possible if you disconnect from the internet. And I want to talk about maybe the software called OBS Studio. This is a really advanced software for extensive customization of presenting and streaming. And then there's tutorials. There's a really pretty simple tutorial of this guy talking about, which I'll send in the chat. It's a YouTube video you can watch on your own. Basically, it enables a feature like adding pictures to your frame. So you can add maybe some advertisement in the background, your contact information in the foreground, and it's really best for hosting live events. So you can look that up. You have time. Try to utilize the best you can to the software that you have. So now we'll move on to kind of the long-awaited settings or tips from the software that this is as an example. So Zoom here we have that we can test our hardware and some options that you don't usually see if you don't go into the settings. So here on the top section, you have how you want to test your speaker. So this drop-down bar would show you the different output speaker that you have. Usually leave it as system, so that's using the desktop speaker or maybe the speaker that you plug into your desktop. So that's usually default. So microphones, this is a really important section. There can be different sources, virtual microphone, virtual sources of input you want to watch out for. Usually if you plug in a headphone, you'll show up as a headphone option here. So you want to select that and then test the input level. If you hit test here, it will play back what you just said. Record and play back what you just said, and then you can hear yourself talking into the headphone. So I usually leave this setting on so you can auto adjust the level on the microphone. You'll shift this bar up and down. Also, I think it was updated in the Zoom 5.0 software version that there is this suppress background noise option. There's low, medium, I think high settings that you can select accordingly for the background noise that you have. Usually if it's a quiet place, to keep it on low or auto, that is fine. And then here are just 3 options that you can go over, kind of how the meeting is set up. So mute your mic when joining, and press the space key to temporarily unmute, and also sync the buttons on your headset if you have one that you connected with your laptop. And then next up, so this is a panel we're all familiar with to change up your virtual background. So you can upload pictures and videos funny ones or professional ones all together here. And you want to kind of keep this option on. That's usually the good practice to mirror your video, so that when you raise your left hand, so here I'm raising my left hand, you'll see that on your video feed. So yeah, so I was talking about this mirror your video feature, so that if you raise something, in the direction that you're raising, the side that you're raising, you'll see the same situation on the other side of the screen, so you don't create those confusion you want to avoid. And then next we have the kind of the speaker view, gallery view in the main session here. So it depends on your preference. You can have either in your session in gallery view, which is kind of side by side of the people in the grid that you're interviewing with, you're having a video conference with, or the speaker view, which will highlight the people that is speaking in the middle. I think we all play with this during in class and with the professors sharing screens. You want to watch out for settings that you want to set. Sorry. To adjust how you want to see the other people. And then next, if you have content to share using the share screen feature, there are a few options here. First, on usually the top left corner, you'll see the screen, maybe share desktop 1 or desktop 2. So it will share all the windows on the display of your choice. So if it's desktop 1, you'll see here, I have this general meetings Google slide showing up. If you move around the window will move, the video feed will move with the window that you move around with. In contrast, if you select kind of the title with the software name in the front, this will only share the screen of the software window. So if you close that window, it would sort of stop the sharing. If you resize, it will resize with what you do on the screen. And if you change to another window, the sharing columns, sharing the screen will not go with what you're moving to. And then lastly, I want to talk about this feature here. So optimize screen share for video clip. You only want to turn this on if you have video clip that you're sharing, because Zoom algorithm would kind of sacrifice video resolution over frame rate, because video usually have a higher frame rate, have more object moving around than maybe the PPT setting that we have here, which is usually most of the stuff is static. So if you want to have a better resolution and turn this off, if you want to share a video, turn this on. And then make sure to keep this off if you're not sharing any video. And then lastly, I will call this the most confusing part for like professors and when they're sharing screen, is because they don't see the chat. Like, where's the chat? I lose the chat box and whatever. This is because it's usually hiding under this 3-dotted bar that you see when you're sharing the screen. So when you share a screen, this bar will always present usually default on top of the screen that you're sharing. And so you want to go to chat, simply click on this 3-dotted here, and you can see other options. If you're a participant, you might see less options here. And then there's also the function to annotate, so you can draw stuff on your screen and type stuff. So this is where you want to go. So those are just kind of some simple tips that I found useful to make my life easier when I'm presenting, when I'm doing interview. And also I want to mention utilize this virtual kind of setting to your advantage, right? So a lot of people kind of talk about the background that I use, this one kind of just made it myself. It really is a conversation starter for me, because usually people see like, oh, you have your name as your background. That's really cool. Like, what do you do? What's maybe this is your habit, something like that. So kind of gets to start the conversation, maybe present your personality. And if you have a unique background, that also stands out to you, makes you stand out from the crowd that the interview is interviewing all day. If you're only using like a Bay Area generic, like a landscape Photoshop photo background, it might get boring, it might get the virtual background clip and not really work really well. So you want to utilize that to your advantage to manage what you show on the screen. That is the most important, because this is all you got. You don't have anything besides that you can present to the other person if they don't know you. So I want to go through kind of example that I found randomly online. So these people here are just random folks online doing a Zoom interview session that they took a screenshot. So there is a couple problems I want you to watch out for, since it's really common. As you know, people are normal when making mistakes. You don't really pay attention to those. As usual, this is kind of like a casual meeting, so it's going to expose more issues I want to point out. So here we have our Sir Dante here, our friend here. He had this really bright area that is kind of backlit in the background that is taking away his proper exposure of the camera. So his facial feature is really dark. You can't really see like this section of his frame. But other than that, I think if we move around and move, maybe close the curtain here, I have something to cover it. This background looks okay. And then our friend Christopher here, he's doing okay. The hat is pretty cool, and you can see some bright spot there in the background. This is something that is kind of trivial, but we want to kind of avoid those as much as possible. But overall, Christopher is doing pretty good. Our friend Stefan here, same problem, really bright light source. But other than that, the background setting is okay. Maybe have some external light source that's shining on the face, maybe reflecting off from the wall like I demonstrated, so that the face could be brighter. Michael here, same problem. The curtain is not shut, so the bright kind of shining through that going to the camera. We don't really see his face really properly, so we want to avoid that as well. Sabrina here doing terribly. Oh my god, like this is terrible. Like we can't. Is she wearing glasses? Or maybe yeah, yeah. So we want to avoid this problem. It's really common, as we can see, of the backlit problem in the background. And then our friend Mrs. Gramham here, she's doing pretty okay. Maybe this light source is also kind of undermining the video quality, so want to watch out for that. Maybe also have an external light source during the daytime. That will help as well. And then Sam here has the same problem. Background looks okay. Julie here is doing wonderfully. She's really happy. But the background, I don't know what this part is, but the simple background, white background, is usually a general rules of thumb that is really simple, that is not distracting, overly distracting. So this is a pretty good example. Holly here doing okay. The face is not bright enough, so there's still like uneven shadow cast on her face, on the shoulder. So we want to avoid that as well. And then Aline here, basically she's, I would say, using only the computer screen as a light source. So this creates some kind of really grainy picture. I don't know if you can see from the Zoom video call, probably not. That the picture, the white area is really grainy with black dots really predominantly in the background. So this is because her face is underlit, the environment is underlit. So maybe add a light source to that frame. That will be better. I'll kind of skip around. Katrina here is a classic example of nose cam, right? So she's looking down heavily on the camera, on camera lens, so that we're only seeing maybe like this shadow part of her neck and cast on the face as well. And then we're seeing her nose, kind of like a predominant feature as the video call here. And then the frame is kind of off center. You can see this roof line here. I want to kind of tilt the laptop a little bit maybe, and then elevate it up so that you don't have this nose cam issue that you're having here. So these are just kind of generic examples that you see people doing every day. So we want you guys to put into practice here. We'll do a really short 2 rounds of breakout room. So people of 2 maybe say hi and then deliver maybe your 1-minute pitch, or describe to each other what you did today, you're feeling. And then you want to adjust the settings of your background while you're doing that, right? And then get pointer to each other once you're done talking. So we'll do 5 minutes per round for the 2 rounds, so total of 10 minutes, and we'll be back in the main session for our activities. Right, so breakout room. I'll create a breakout room right now. So it'll be 5 minutes, and then we'll rotate. So for the second round, then we'll go from there. Just give me a second here. We'll have 8 breakout rooms, and then I'll be going through the breakout room if you have any questions. Create them. Okay, and then open our room. There, and then you should be seeing that option on your screen right now. Let me know if you have any questions.